Before we get started, a quick reminder. Unlocked is for informational and entertainment purposes only. It is not a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Please consult a qualified healthcare provider for any health concerns. Thank you for listening. Please like, subscribe, and give a thumbs up, and share across all platforms. Unlocked. Mental performance, physical results. Welcome to Unlocked Mental Performance, Physical Results. I'm Coach Eric. Hey, Coach! This episode's for you. Hey, don't turn it off if you're a player or a parent, because normally on this show, I'm talking to you, players. And sometimes I'm talking to parents. In fact, I have a bad habit of flipping back and forth mid-episode because I'm hoping everybody's listening. But I'm always hoping that the coaches are listening, because I'm hoping they want to know what their players are hearing, what their players are being told, and I want them to better understand what their players are going through. So today, Coach, I'm coming right to you. And this isn't going to be the nice coach day. This isn't patting you on the back for the good job you've done. And trust me, there are a lot of great coaches out there doing a great job, and you're probably one of them, but you've probably also stepped in it. And you probably know a coach who steps in it all the time, and really, this is going to hit the nose for them. And hey, this is not personal to one coach. This is just observations over the last 20 years of being in this business. So here we go. Look, over the last 20 years, the sports scene has changed significantly. I mean, let's face it, over the last couple of years, between the transfer portal and the NIL, those rule changes have completely remade the landscape, not just for college where it directly affects it, but also for pros, with whether or not guys want to get there or not, whether or not they want to be drafted in baseball and hockey and other sports. And it has trickled down to high school, to middle school. I have seen the effects with elementary school because there are travel organizations using nil as motivation for parents to pony over 10 grand a year for a third grader. Yes, it is that serious. And not only does the money trickle down, but more importantly, and specifically to this episode, what we're talking about is the pressure. The pressure is so much higher than it was 20 years ago. Look, when I was going through the recruiting process back in the 90s, man, we didn't have this kind of pressure. When I was coming up in elementary school in the 80s and 90s through middle school and high school, you played in your rec league. And that wasn't a bad thing. That was a badge of honor, and you were fighting for your all-star rights, man. You wanted to be an all-star. You wanted to go on the trail. And then when you got to high school, it was all about getting to Legion Ball, right? Remember Legion Ball? It was community ball. And we're going to have a conversation about community ball, because I'm telling you right now that I'm saying those words, I know I got to have an episode about that. But there was limited travel teams out there. There was AAU. It was really big in basketball. There was club soccer. Club soccer was just growing, but those teams, man, they put in work and they traveled. And in baseball, you were starting to see things splitting away from going on the Little League All-Star Tour, or the Cal Ripken All-Star Tour, or the Pony All-Star Tour, or the Babe Ruth, or Knot Hole, all these different all-star paths to get to these big tournaments. You were starting to see more and more USSSA type stuff cropping up, regional brands like Top Gun, big brands like Perfect Game and PBR and all these. They're really starting to break in, 20 years ago, but they weren't what they are now, which is this massive industry based on the blood and sweat and tears of a bunch of elementary school, middle school, and eventually high school kids. So you look at this and you say, all right, there was pressure then though too, Coach. I mean, you wanted to get recruited. You wanted to go to college. You wanted to do these things. Okay, let me take you back in time. If you were trying to get recruited in the late 90s, you were taking VHS tapes and recording highlight reels on them, and you were mailing them to coaches. You were making mixtapes, and you probably had multiple formats you had to use. None of them were digital, right? If your mom and dad had the VHS camcorder that was the size of a bazooka for the shoulder, and they were recording on that. Maybe they had a handheld that recorded those little tiny tapes. Now you're running RCA cables, and you're cutting up film, trying to get a good highlight reel, and maybe you're sending an entire half of a basketball game or maybe even an entire basketball game, and you're packaging this up on a VHS tape to send to a coach, and there's handwritten letters with personal messages like a resume. And what you're hoping is to get that phone call, right? And, you've got your travel coach who's making these phone calls, talking to the coaches they know. If you're lucky, your high school coach or AD are making those phone calls. It was the start of a growth industry. I remember there was a guy in town who would come to the high school and talk to players after games and kind of pull you aside and be, hey, if you want to play in college, here's my business card. Have your mom and dad call me. And then they would sales pitch the idea that they know a bunch of coaches. They'd make those phone calls. They'd mail those VHS tapes. They might even make those VHS tapes for you. But I can remember having to hook up the RCA cables, doing that stuff myself. And then you're sitting there and you're waiting for that phone call. And when that coach calls, you're saying, Mom, hold the phone. And they're running back to the back bedroom and sitting on your mom and dad's bed, picking up the line in their room so you can talk in private to this coach. And you may know nothing about their school because you've never seen highlights of it. It might be hundreds of miles away, and you've got no idea. It might be the school who you're fortunate enough to practice on their field and have some of their players as your coach. It was a different feel, and there was a lot of waiting and a lot of anticipation, but it was not at the forefront of everyday thought. You were just hoping for that phone call. You were hoping for that letter to come in the mail that invited you to come to campus to visit. You're showing up to campus with this letter hoping it's legit. Like, who do I show this to so I can get the real tour? I can go see the locker rooms and hang out with the dudes and, get the scoop. It was pressure, but it wasn't constant. It wasn't instant, and it certainly wasn't continuous. And that's what players today are facing, coaches. That's what your players face every single day. Not only are you standing there watching them, not only is there the possibility that scouts are standing there watching them, not only is there the possibility that parents who know scouts are standing there watching them, but there's the very real reality that every single person watching, whether they care about that player or not, can video record them with their phones. And they can have that posted before the game is over, for better or for worse. And what they know is if they're the pitcher who just gave up the long bomb to the kid trying to get recruited, that kid is going to post you being humiliated with the long bomb on every social media platform they have and tag every coach, including the coach you're hoping is looking at you as the pitcher who gave up that home run. And that's a lot of pressure. Now, you can sit there and go, well, but if he's that good, why did he give up the home run? Or if he's that good, that coach isn't going to care to give up the home run. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter which one of those things is true. That kid's going to feel that pressure regardless because that video is real and it's going nowhere. He can't get rid of that. That is now part of his resume and he didn't even put it out there. And that pressure is there 24/7. You don't think that kid shows up to school the next day and little Johnny Bully is pulling that up on his phone and going, look at the long bomb you gave up. Doesn't even matter if the dude is a superstar outfielder who never pitches, who just came in relief in a blowout, and they're winning by 2 touchdowns, and random 4-stick for the other team just happened to get a desperation home run. That video is real and it's everywhere now. And that kid who's not even trying to get recruited as a pitcher has to face the fact that that video is out there of them failing. So, coach, you want to know if there's pressure on these kids? It's a whole lot more pressure than the pressure you had to face when you went through the recruiting process 20, 30, 40 years ago. It's more pressure than you had to face going through the recruiting pressure 10 years ago. And if you're brand stinking new to coaching, let me tell you, you didn't have quite the pressure they've got now. But at least you have an idea. At least you have an idea. So, coaches, I've already put you under the bus here now for the last 5 minutes ranting about understanding the pressure. But do you realize how you contribute to the pressure? Have you as a coach ever looked at your team and seen them so tight that they're more likely to make diamonds than base hits? Have you yelled at them that strikeouts are unacceptable and openly questioned in the very next breath why they're so nervous? Have you stood in front of your team and said to them that you're not the enemy, you shouldn't be making them nervous? Despite the fact that you stand in constant judgment, the fact that you control their playtime. And let's face it, you are the gatekeeper of their development. Yeah, you might not be pitching the ball to that hitter, but you are absolutely causing more pressure than everything I listed before this conversation even started. You are more pressure than scouts. You are more pressure than X. You are more pressure than Insta. You are more pressure than Face. You are more pressure than the girlfriend in the stands. Because you control their playtime. You stand there in judgment of them. You are the gatekeeper of their development. Let's break this down. Player A does so poorly that you dress them down in front of their teammates. You tear them up. You rip them a new one. They just struck out. And that's unacceptable. We had a runner in scoring position. You have to put the ball in play. You can't strike out in a play like that. That was a terrible approach. So now that player and their teammates know that you don't trust them. They know you don't trust player A. So they, the collective, start to lose faith in themselves. Well, wait a minute, Coach Eric. What do you mean they start losing faith in themselves? I'm only talking to player A. Uh-huh. And every single one of those players just lost faith in player A. And when player A gets weaker, the team gets weaker. When the players lose faith in A, they lose faith in team. You weakened everybody. More importantly, though, every single one of those guys doesn't want to be player A next time. Well, yeah, I'm motivating them to do better. Sports are hard. In the context of baseball, it's real hard. Great hitters at the high levels are hitting 300. That's 1 out of 3. Average hitters are hitting 200, 225 these days. So we're talking, what, 2 out of 10? Sure, but that's the big leagues, right? High school, got to hit 400. Okay, so they got to hit 400 over what? 50 at-bats? They got to hit 400 over 50 at-bats. So the difference between hitting 400 and hitting 200 is a handful of hits over the course of their at-bats. You start taking into consideration walks, hit by pitch. Just going to kill this kid over half a dozen hits over the course of your season. That's the way you're going to motivate your entire team, is by fear of that singular at-bat and how that's going to drastically change your entire season. And of course, now that you've ripped the guy publicly, and now that you're angry at him, you're going to reduce his playtime. You want to know why players B, C, and D are nervous? Well, you just took player A, ripped him publicly. They don't want to get ripped publicly, and they now know he's coming out of the game. He's being replaced. They don't want to be replaced. Nobody wants to lose the limited number of innings they're going to get in the first place. But, you know, if you do it at least between innings, you avoid the ultimate humiliation. I saw this recently, and I got to tell you, this sickened me. There was a high school coach who committed the ultimate player humiliation of a mid-inning substitution due to an error. Oh, I know, Coach. It is unacceptable for a high school player to commit an error on that routine play. I mean, never mind the fact that this past weekend, I watched a Major League Baseball star who finished top 10 in the MVP voting last year boot a routine grounder. But no, it is unacceptable for your high school kid not to be perfect. Better get him out of there before he costs you a state title. Yeah. So then you're going to get to practice. You ripped all these dudes during the game, after the game. They go home. They're feeling it. They're feeling it. And then you get to practice the next day, and you take that player and you change his reps. You change his reps. Yeah, you're calling it back to basics, but it's not back to basics. I mean, it would be nice if it was. And there are some coaches out there who will legitimately take that player who struggled under their wing and help work them back to basics. But come on now, you know the easy route. You know the angry coach. You know the disciplinary coach. You know the title chaser. You know that guy. No, he's lost faith in the player. And now you as that coach, you're giving him remedial reps. You're giving them disciplinary reps. Not standard reps, not developmental reps. Doesn't matter what you're going to label them. They're punishment because you're mad at their results. You're mad at their results. And so now you've given them back to basics reps designed to put them in their place. A teenage kid who is working hard to develop, and you are putting him in his place. This is where the real power lies for coaches. Not only can they kill the players' playtime, but playtime is where the glamour happens. The development and the work, it happens at practice. And coaches are the gatekeepers to their players' development. They control practice. Parents always complain about game time. And when they complain about game time, they are missing the real truth here. The real truth is where coaches have the most power, and you as a coach need to remember this. Where you have the most power is at practice. Because at practice, you tell the players on the team and you tell the individual player themselves who you believe in. You spend your resources and your time on the players that you want. On the players you want. Now, you may believe you have a great eye for talent, and maybe you do. But you still are choosing the outcome for those other players. And if it's a player you're annoyed with, even if they're a highly touted, highly talented, highly recruited prospect, you can destroy them. You can destroy them with what you do to them at practice. There is a fine line between being a hard-nosed coach who is sharpening steel with steel and building up players by breaking them down, and a coach who's just a jerk. And you have to ask yourself, when you lose your temper and you rant and rave and you develop a reputation for needing a translator to tell your team what it is you really meant, when you're blowing your top off at practice and you're punishing kids and you're holding certain kids to a different standard than others, and when you're standing there and saying, an error committed by a Major League Baseball player is unacceptable for my high school kid, you need to step back and ask yourself, what are you doing to your team on the whole? How is that helping you win, which is your ultimate goal? Because let's face it, hey, parents, players, anyone listening to this who's not a coach, hey, all you coaches who lie to yourselves, at the end of the day, you have to win to keep your job. So winning is paramount for you. It is. Stop lying to yourself. I hope you make development just as important, but development won't keep your job. Winning will. You know that. I know that. Your parents and players better know that. And you need to be honest with them with that. But do not stand in front of a room of parents and tell them development is not your job. Do not stand in front of a room of parents and tell them development is not your job. One more time for the guy not listening. Development is your job. It's your job. It's your job because you want to win. And if you don't develop your players, you're not going to win. And when you tell those guys development is not your job, whether that's what you're truly feeling or not, what you're telling them is your failures are the only thing I'm going to judge you on. So you either succeed or I'm shelving you for the next guy until he fails. And that may sound like great motivation to you. That's old school 1970s, 1980s coaching 101. Well, there's movies made about coaches like that. Yeah. We've learned since then that doesn't really work with most athletes. Some guys it does. Maybe it did with you. But for the vast majority of players, that's not going to get it done. They need built up. They need to become physically and mentally strong. They cannot be shelter puppies. You cannot beat them to the point that they are hiding from you. I'm serious about this. I'm going to tell you this right now. I know of a team where players have changed positions to avoid the head coach. No joke. Change positions to avoid the head coach. Why? Because he only spends a lot of time with certain positions. And so if you don't play those positions, you get yelled at less. So you got kids in high school making choices about what position they play, not based on what they love, not based on what they're good at, not based on what they want to play in college, not based on what they play in travel, but based on not getting yelled at by their coach. And you can tell me that's mental weakness, and I'm going to tell you, coach, you need to check yourself. Look in the mirror and ask yourself, what have you done to make kids so nervous that they're squeezing out more diamonds than base hits? Because this game is hard. It's hard. And this accounts for everybody. I keep talking in terms of baseball coaches because it's baseball season. But I was at basketball this weekend. And I watched a kid who is I'm talking 80% plus middle school basketball free throw shooter. Blah. Excuse my words. Go 0 for 2. And you know what his coach did? You know what he did? Nothing. Do you think he'd have made his next one if the coach had blown his top and put so much pressure on that kid that he could get to the line and squeeze his butt cheeks together? No. He looked at that kid and said, hey, this is our second game of the day. You've already been on the court for almost 30 minutes, and you missed that foul shot. You're tired. Your legs are sore. You got to get a little more bend and get loose for the next one. And he recovered, and he scored again that game. That is strong mental coaching. At practice, I guarantee you Mr. Shoots 80% from the foul line, who went 0 for 2 in that game, is going to be on the foul line shooting shots to develop his touch. And he's probably going to be doing them after practice or late in practice when he's already tired, because that's when he failed. But I promise you he'll also be doing them at the beginning of practice, because that specific coach, despite being a hard coach, despite having a reputation for disciplinary action, despite being gruff, despite having a firm tone, understood in that moment that free throw shot wasn't the ending of that game. There was lots of other things that happened in that game. And if you kill that player for that shot, you might as well put him on the bench, because he's going to be killed for the rest of the game. And the same is true in every sport. The same is true on your baseball diamond. You tell a player, next play, next play. Next hit, next pitch, next snap, next shot. Talking about lots of sports here, right? Coaches are always saying that. Be ready for the next one, except that you've just battered the player about the last one. And since you're still mad about it, and you still are scowling, and you still have bad body language, your player on the field, he feels that. He's not ready for the next play because you're not. You as a coach have not moved on. You're thinking about, do I need to replace him in the lineup? You're thinking about, boy, when we get to practice, you better watch out. You're yelling at the guys on the bench about what the player in the field just did. And you think the player in the field can move on first? You think the player in the field can let it go when you can't? Well, that's how you become a great player. Sure is. So how are you helping that guy become a great player? How are you, as a coach, developing that player so that he can be great? Because if you want to win, he's got to be great, and the guy behind him on the bench has got to be great. And if you're standing there in your dugout, if you're standing there in your sidelines, if you're standing there at the side of your field, trashing the guy on the field to the guy who can't seem to beat him out for the job, which one of those guys are you helping? Neither. I'm going to answer that one for you. Neither. Because now the guy on the bench knows the first shot he gets, you're going to be telling the guy he replaced what trash he is every mistake he makes. So once you get to high school and you start talking about that next level, and unfortunately now that starts in middle school, but once you get to that point, you start talking about next level. For the players, the goal becomes twofold. They want to win and they want to get better, but they also want to get seen and move on to the next level. For the coach, it's really still about just winning, right? Because that's how they keep their job. But coaches, hey, if you're out there and you're listening, when you tell that player that development is your job, that you're there to make them a better player, that you're there to help them get to the next level, that you've got their back, that you're going to do things for them to get them there, you're also opening the door for that player to consider you a teammate in their journey to the next level. You're not just an authority figure, but you're somebody that they can have mutual respect for. You're somebody who's going to help them in their goals. And that coaches, is how you get that player to work harder for you. That, coaches, is how you get that player fighting for you day and night. Yes, some guys will do it anyway, just for the love of the game. Some guys will do it anyway because they respond well to getting beat down. But you want that whole bench on your side? Do not make the mistake of thinking them having a mutual enemy in you is what's going to bond to them. That's old school. Players these days have too much access and too many resources to believe that. Not only do they see the experts that post on social media, some of them are experts, some of them aren't, so we'll put that in quotes. But they've also seen travel coaches. They've had middle school coaches. They had rec coaches. They've had lessons. They've had all these different environments to play in. And they know the difference between a blowhard and somebody who's really out there for them and invested in them. And if you're a coach that needs people to translate for you because you lose your temper too often, you need to identify that, and you need to bring someone onto your staff who's going to be able to put their arm around players and help build them up because you can't. Identify that weakness in yourself. Don't surround yourself with yes men and yellers. Surround yourself with development coaches, because that is what your team needs. You might be a genius at your sport. You might be the best three-point shooting coach in the country. And if all you can do is break people down to build them up, you've got to find a coach who can build them up for the sake of building them up. You need that guy on your staff. And I don't care if he's a big man coach. I don't care if he's a ball handling coach. I don't care what he is. I don't care if he doesn't have anything to do with basketball at all. He's just some schmo with a psychology degree. If he can help you in that way, put him on your staff, because that's what you need. You need to round it out. Don't just put yourself with a bunch of dudes like you. They'll need more of you. I don't care how smart you are, I don't know how good you are. They need more of everything else. And that brings me to a good point here about some of the outside help that these kids get. Once you get to high school, many coaches have rules in place that restrict their players from outside lessons and work during the season. And I talked about them being the gatekeepers at practice. Well, this further increases the control of coaches on their players' development. So between the slam schedule, the tight-fisted rules, high school players are truly at the mercy of their coach. So whether that coach is supportive or destructive, whether he provides resources or takes them away in punishment, that coach is the single largest source of pressure for his team, because he controls so much of that player's well-being. And that's really what we're talking about here. The coaches control the player's well-being because they dictate the tempo, they dictate the mood, they dictate the energy, the atmosphere, all of those things in addition to the practice plan, the practice timing, the distribution of reps, the play time, the position selection. They have so much influence over their individual players that they are a bigger opponent than the opponent lining up on the other side. So if you as a coach are questioning why your players feel the way they do, grab a mirror, my man. Grab a mirror. You are the single biggest opponent they have unless you become the single biggest proponent they have. So ask yourself, what is your job? I'm Coach Eric. This has been a very special episode of Mental Performance, Physical Results. A shout out to all you coaches out there that are doing a great job. I do truly appreciate you. But this little tough love session was just like what you feel like you need to give your players. And what I hope you take away from this isn't that I hate coaches, because I love coaches. It's that I hate bad coaching. I hate egotistical coaching. I hate coaching that forgets what the real job is. These young men and women out there, they need you in their lives. You're key to their lives. You are. You might be the single most important and influential person in their life right now. And if you don't see that, and you don't realize that, or you don't want that in your life, you need to reevaluate what you're doing. All right? Because while I may hate the process, I may hate the results, I may hate a lot of what I see in the coaching world, I don't hate the coach themselves. Love you guys. Because we have a shared passion. We do. We love sports. We love our players. We love our games. And unfortunately, sometimes the pressure of that doesn't only get to the players, but it gets to us as coaches. It gets to us as human beings. Because at the end of the day, that is what we are. And so if you're worried about weakness in your team, start by looking inward at your coaching and understand that what worked for you 20 years ago might not be what works now. And if that's not what you're ready to do, those aren't changes you're ready to make, find somebody to put on your staff who's ready to be that person for you so that your intelligence within your sports, your expertise can still be shared and somebody else can help balance out the atmosphere. And hey, if there's anything I can do, reach out. Let me know. Because I want what you want. I want your team to win. I'm Coach Eric. This has been another episode of Unlocked Mental Performance, Physical Results. Please tune in next time when I rant about something else.
Steps up to the plate, feeling the weight. The crowd's cheering loud, but it's up to fate. Struck out too many times, doubts creeping in, but he knows in his heart it's time to begin. He remembers the lessons, the words that they say. Keep your head up high, don't let fear lead the way. Act, take a swing, let the baton talk. Chest high, walk the walk. Breathe in deep, let the pressure unlock. You are focused, ready to rock. Commit to the moment, let the past fade away. Get back in the game, you're ready to play. The sun's shining bright, he's feeling the heat. With every deep breath, he's back on his feet. Visualizing success, he's got a new plan. With the tools from Play Big, he's a brand new man. He knows it's a journey, not just a quick fix. With patience and practice, he'll find his own mix. Act, take a swing, let the back of the talk. Chest high, walk the walk. Breathe in deep, let the pressure unlock. You are focused, ready to rock. Commit to the moment, let the past fade away. Get back in the game, you're ready to play. Setback's a lesson, every strike's a chance to rise up stronger, to take a new stance. With the crowd on his side, he's ready to show. With the ABCs in his heart, he's ready to go. Act, take a swing, let the back of the talk. Chest high, walk the walk. Breathe in deep, let the pressure unlock. You are focused, ready to rock. Commit to the moment, let the past fade away. Get back in the game, you're ready to play. So here's to the slumps, the struggles we face. With courage and commitment, we'll find our own place. Every new inning is a chance to rise. Chase the champion spirit to the skies. Every new inning is a chance to rise.